Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our session this afternoon. A special welcome to Ed, and who is going to be leading this conversation like he normally does. Um, just to remind you that we are still continuing with our entrepreneurial excellence series, and we have done number 7 of the series thus far. And you'll find it on the Griffin Enterprise Development YouTube channel, and it's called episode 26 and entitled Does Your Brand Have Real Meaning? So, without further ado, Ed, over to you.
Thanks, Jacques. We spent the last two of these conversations talking about brand. Now, we could cheerfully spend 6 months talking about brand because it is a very wide subject. But that's not the purpose of this series. The purpose of this series is to alert entrepreneurs to areas where they should consider how strong or weak they are in those particular areas, which gives them the opportunity to go then into delving further um, and finding out more about that particular area so that they can improve. So, if we take brands, for instance, if after the discussion that we've had over the last couple of weeks, an entrepreneur goes back, listens to the conversations, ticks off the individual items that we've talked about, then he might say, we got a great brand, but not enough people know about it. So that's an area of weakness. Let me learn up about how brands are communicated in the marketplace, for instance. Or he might find that his his staff don't live the brand, and he can find probably university degrees on how to get staff to live a brand, so he can go into that sort of area. Purpose of this conversation is to highlight those areas so that they are available for further study and improvement, of course. Don't even have to have further study. In some cases, you can just say, oops, not doing a very good job there, because there are very few of us who are perfect, even though we might think we are. But perfection is a little difficult to find. So today I'm going to shift from brands to the next topic, and it follows fairly logically. We're going to be talking about marketing over the next couple of sessions. Marketing and sales, in fact, but for today, I just want to talk about marketing. And marketing itself is perhaps one of the most abused words in business. People talk about marketing as if it was synonymous with selling or synonymous with advertising. Advertising and selling, yes, may well be a part of marketing, even a major part of marketing, but it is not marketing. Marketing is a much broader field than that. And it does somehow become abused in a lot of ways. The word becomes abused. And by doing so, people think, hey, I'm doing a great job marketing because look how well I'm advertising things. And that's not the whole story, because you might well be advertising brilliantly to the wrong audience, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong message, and with the wrong outcomes. And how many times have you and I heard people say, I spent all of this money and we got no return whatsoever? That's a very typical outcome of thinking wrongly about what marketing is. So, what is it if it's not just advertising or just selling or just digital promotions? Well, I have a concept which was taught to me many years ago by a very, very senior entrepreneur uh, running a huge organization. And he said there are really four parts to marketing. The first part says, we exist, we are here. So you communicate with whatever target market you want to communicate with, or multiple target markets, and your very first message is we exist. This is us. This is our name. This is where we are. And you'll see that a lot of billboard advertising does this kind of marketing, where there's just the name of a company. Now, we take some memorable examples and we take uh, a company like Outsurance. Now, they've done a very good job by multiple different channels to show that, hey, Outsurance, and because of the surance, it sounds like an insurance company and the play on words. And people are very, very familiar that Outsurance is an insurance organization and associated products, and that it's resident in this country. And they've done that by means of billboards and TV ads, but they've also done that by means of providing pointsmen at intersections where there were robots out, at sponsoring various events, at all sorts of things like that. So that's a great example, but it's a very large organization. And you can't, generally speaking, equate someone with several hundred million marketing budget with an SME run by an entrepreneur. But there are some very, very good examples among entrepreneurial businesses too. And we could all think of a few of them. We think of how recently We Buy Cars has become a household word. They've just done an exceptionally good job and grown to be a massive organization in a relatively short period. And there's many other similar examples. So the first statement is we are here. And the simpler that statement is, the better. The second thing, and it's sometimes combined with the first, is what we do. So if you have a company name like We Buy Cars, well, says it all. Outsurance, to a large degree, says it all. So you've got steps one and two sometimes can be blended together, but not always. So in many, especially for the small businesses, you need someone to be able to say, oh, yes, there's Fred's auto electricians. And first of all, they've got to know that Fred is there. And secondly, they've got to know that Fred is actually an auto electrician. Same thing is true in retail. Same thing is true in professions, especially. So you have an accounting firm and their name is out there. Um, But you don't know actually what they do. Do they do text? Do they prepare your books for you? Uh, do they specialize in small businesses or in major accounts? And there are even people who've done that in fields like law and medicine and accounting and a whole lot of other fields. So you get medical practices which are very clear in what they do, their name and what they do. And you get uh, commercial organizations that do the same thing, where they're very clear in what they do, even though they are professional organizations. So, just to quote another example, the bean counters. That's an accounting and tax firm that is very successful, highly successful organization, and the name is fairly familiar. Bean counters means, yeah, we do some counting of beans or accounting work. Um, and then the second point is what do we do? So the bean counters would say accounting and taxations for SMEs, if that's what they did. Um, so the second step would be what do we actually do? Then the third step, those two are fairly easy to get a message across. You can buy advertising, you can go to exhibitions, you can go on shows, you can sponsor prominent local uh, events. You can do lots. You can have sign writing on your property. You can do lots and lots of things to get your name and what you do out to the public. The third step is the difficult one. It says, why would you consider buying from me? Why me? Now, I was testing this idea a little while ago, and I went onto the internet and I searched for the most absurd things that I could buy online. Um, there were some very, very extreme ones, including a site where you could supposedly buy human babies,
Oh,
specified by,
wow.
by coloring, race, age, gender. I
Incredible.
suspect it was more of a con job than anything else, but it was actually there.
Mm.
But the other site which gobsmacked me was business jets. So there was a site where they sold business jets, and they had all the brands. They were obviously a broker, an aircraft broker. They had all the brands, and you could buy new or second hand. And they listed all of the brands by sort of classification. Do you want a teeny little business jet for only, I don't know, $5 million or something like that? Or do you want a really serious big business jet for quite a lot more money? And then they grouped them into comparative areas. And there was a table where you could compare a Gulfstream and a Lear and a few others, and look at the number of pilots that were needed. You could look at its range. You could look at its fuel consumptions, the number of passengers in various configurations. Um, its navigational aids and available, and a whole lot of others, length of runway that it needed, and so on. So you could go through there and say, that looks quite nice. And they didn't actually have a shopping cart, but you could tick one and they would immediately get into conversation with you. So you didn't have a shopping cart where you could actually say, put that one and this one in the shopping cart. And when I get to checkout, I'll pull out my unlimited credit card. But it was fairly close to that. So I could have bought without talking to a salesperson. I could have selected a business jet if I was wealthy enough to do it and told them where it had to be delivered. Oh, yeah, there was another question. Where are you? Do you require it delivered or will you collect? I sat there in absolute wonder and thought, who would shop online for a business jet? But that's actually what happens. In the whole world, you can buy things from anywhere around the world online that previously you would have to have an expert vendor near to you to sell. So now, if you're a vendor, I'll ask the question again, why you? With all of this infinite choice in the world, why would people buy from you? And don't, for heaven's sake, tell me we give better customer service, because that's now expected. It's not a differentiator anymore. Don't tell me that our product quality is very high, because once again, that's just a given. Having great customer service and high quality products and services just gets you to sit at the table. It doesn't mean people buy from you. It's just if you don't have those things, you're just never going to get an audience at all. So it's quite a tricky question. And if you have to convey that out in marketing messages, it restricts the media, because the more complex that message becomes, the less you are able to use media like um, SMSs and billboards and signage and that sort of thing, because people don't have the attention span to read and study complex messages there. So this is a knotty problem, and it's not just a knotty problem for technical organizations. It is a knotty problem for people who make who do things where there's many competitors. Take mentoring or coaching. There are thousands of people out there competing with you and I, Jacques. And unless we have something that we can say, which is why us, then
Mm.
why should people deal with us?
Oh,
They can
absolutely.
pick a coach from anywhere in the world and be coached. Yes, not face to face, but with the electronic tools today, it doesn't really matter, does it? So, you and I in competition with, I don't know, half a million people, all with their own capability. Same thing is true of photographers or public speakers or anything else. So, tricky stuff. If you're looking for a website designer, I recently put a message onto social media saying I was looking for someone to upgrade my website. And I had people from all around the world coming in bidding. I think I counted 9 countries or something like that, including South Africa, where the local people were in competition with companies in Bangladesh and Germany and America and Spain and all around the world. So this is a thorny question. And if entrepreneurs can't immediately say, why me? Why would they buy from me? Then I would suggest that you really spend a lot of time from now on answering that thorny question. And you might have to go along to your customers to ask, to say, why actually do you buy from me? That's a very difficult, very threatening thing to do, because you might get the customer saying, well, I don't know, actually, probably inertia, and trigger the thought that they might start looking around for someone else. But if you can't justify why you, how can you expect to sell to the next person with all of the competition that's around in the world? So 3 steps. We exist. This is what we do. Why you should consider talking to us, not buying from us. Consider us. And then the fourth step is come and buy. So the come and buy is the step, and it's often confused with the first three. And frequently in online sales, you have all four all condensed together, which may, and I believe often does, make people hesitant. So that they don't want to buy because they don't understand the company, they don't know what it does, they haven't any reason to trust them because there's no why me, there's just this buy image. Now that hierarchy of advertising has served me well over many years, and it served a lot of people very, very well over a lot of years. Just to repeat it again, we exist, what we do, why me, and then come by. Okay, there is a modified, there were in days gone by, marketing was classified into 4 Ps: price, promotion, um, product, and place. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But I want to continue first of all with the question of marketing. And yeah, um, we need, when we're doing marketing, um, there is a statement that says, apologies for that delay. There is a statement that says the media is the message. Um, we need to be very, very clear what our messages are to the market. So if you if you are using certain types of media, that will give an image of who you are and be part of the message that you're sending to your target market audience. So, we've seen people advertising or promoting their products in perhaps not the wisest circumstance. If you're selling high tech scientific equipment, and to take a silly example, and you put a stall in a flea market, you're saying that this is a kind of cottage industry, the sort of industries that would display in a flea market. If you're putting a billboard on a street of strip clubs, you have an association with that environment that you're putting it in. So the media that you use is very, very critical where you are going to get your message. Sending unsolicited SMSs sends a message to you. Making unsolicited telephone calls sends a message to your target audience. Unsolicited emails sends a message to your audience. Um, irritatingly Irritating ads that pop up and are very difficult to close, or that have sound associated with them, that pop up when someone is on a different app. All of those send a message, and some of them send highly irritating messages. And I think we've all seen the sort of irateness of someone who gets bombarded with incoming telephone calls trying to sell something. Not a smart idea. Be very careful of where you place your message, media, and also be very careful of what your message is. We tend to send the messages that we think would affect um, would cause us to take notice. And the old statement about marketing and advertising is that the company slogan is the one the CEO's wife likes best, I suppose, or husband likes best. But the husband is not the target market. You need to go out into the market and ask them what they think of these various slogans, what would connect, what would speak to them most. I've had many discussions in house. We talked about brands a little while ago of new designed logos, and they go around everywhere in the group, and everyone adds their little bit, and the logo gets tweaked, and so it has these great significances to the people inside. But they're not the target audience. They're not going to buy those products. Why are you asking them for their opinion? I'm a member of many groups, one of which people who have who have written new books, put out their book covers and put out 3 or 4 examples and say, which do you think is best? And they get an interpretation back from everyone to say, well, that surrounding is, says this to me, and that is wrong, and I prefer the coloring on this one. It speaks more to your subject, and that kind of thing. And they eventually end up with a book cover that the group of which they are a peer like. Why do you do that? You don't appeal to that group, otherwise they would have bought the book already, even if it didn't have a cover picture on it. You want to appeal to people who are outside that group, different from that group. Ask them. Don't ask your family and friends, because they will always tell you what they think you like best. Either make your own call or go out and find a target audience and do some research, preferably independent research. Hire someone to do it. because then there won't be the bias in it of trying to please you. So that's when you have a simple message. If your message becomes more complex, if your message of necessity has to be more complex, then you need to do a lot more work. Some little time ago, someone saw an article of a person who had just become uh, the senior person in an organization I knew well, and gave an interview. And a colleague of mine called me up and said, I see you have a new eye specialist. And as you know, Jacques, and people listening in might know, I have an eye disease, so I do have an eye specialist. And I said, no, my doctor is still the same. And he said, no, 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 I, the capital letter eye specialist. When I went back and looked at the article, it was all about I, we, our, and that person was right. The person giving the interview was talking about herself. She wasn't talking about the customers. And that is so wrong. All of our messages should be talking to the customers in the customer's language. But go onto the average website and count the number of I, me, our, us compared to the number of you, yours, and so on. I think you get nasty shock. Maybe go onto your own website and do that count. That language should be talking to the customers, not to you. Then we have some real marketing. Jacques, I think that's about what we've got time for today. This is a very broad subject, and we'll talk more about it in due course.
Yes, Ed. I mean, I think in a way, it is setting the scene for more in-depth discussions as you drill down, perhaps into some of these things that you're talking about. But I think more importantly, just for me, as a wrap-up, is to really not underrate the importance of what you said. Is that the media that you are using is part of your message, and you got to be so careful. And the thought that came up for me was, many times we choose a particular type of medium because it is just affordable, and we don't have too much of a budget, we don't overthink it, and off we go. But I think we just need to pause that one moment longer and consider what you are teaching us this afternoon. Is that even though it is cheaper, is that the message that you want to convey by using that medium? So for me, that is the a critical takeaway this afternoon.
Very much so, yeah. Very important issue.
So yeah, so I look forward to the rest of the conversations, and just to remind Ed and everyone else that we're going to skip another week next week. I'm afraid I'm going to be away this time, Ed. And
Okay,
so we'll see you in 2 weeks' time, and that would be on the 7th of September 2022.
wonderful. Look forward to it.
Look forward to it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Goodbye for
all.
now.
Talk to you again. Bye.